thanks for joining me, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave. I'm happy to be here.
Well, how are things with you? You've got a lot going on these days, a lot of plates spinning.
Yes, I do. Things are great, though. I'm really excited. The last time I was on your show, I was running for office, and since then I've been elected, and it's just been such an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Keene in the New Hampshire State House.
Yeah, and that was such good news for a bunch of people who actually were on, that was on Lori's show last time. Raise Your Voice. She was doing political commentary sort of thing. So Lucius was on there. Jay Kahn was on her show. You know, all people who ended up with seats and and that kind of thing. So yeah, congratulations on that. And I think I did have some questions for you. Really, some of my simple questions were where we thought we might start is just what's it been like to be a new rep in the State House, and walk me through a little of that.
Sure. Well, first, I just want to thank you, Dave, so much for having me again on today, and just say how much I respect your work and the work of Cheshire TV. I think you provide such a service to our community. Every community event that I go to, you're there covering it, and it's really wonderful to have local events and politicians and stories covered. So thank you so much for your work.
My pleasure.
And in terms of my work, I think I'll start by, just for people who I'm new to, just telling them a little bit about myself and why I ran, and then I'll hop right into answering your question about being a freshman rep. So, because that's correct, that's what I am. So I, as many people know, but for those of you who I'm new to, decided to run for office for a few reasons. One is that I have been somebody who throughout my life has struggled for bodily autonomy. When I was a teenager, I needed to access an abortion, and I did face some abortion access barriers, but compared to many, I was privileged in that I had I could afford an abortion, and I was able to get that, and that allowed me to go to college and to graduate school, and to today be teaching yoga, have a little boy. I had him when I was ready to have him, and own a small business and be a state rep, and none of that would have happened if I was forced to carry through a pregnancy when I wasn't ready to. And later on in my life, I left an abusive relationship, and again, another very challenging situation, but I had the support and resources that many don't have, and so I felt once I was on the other side of that, seeing everything that was happening in the country and in the state with attacks on reproductive freedom and survivors not having the resources that they need, I felt a need to pay it forward, and I wanted to go to bat for those who are still suffering, but maybe they don't have the privilege that I had. Maybe they can't speak English, or they don't have parents who can help them financially afford a lawyer in order to leave. And so I wanted to run for office to highlight those issues which so many people face, those bodily autonomy issues, and bring them to the forefront, in addition to being a consistent progressive voice and vote in the New Hampshire House. And that's what I've been doing every day since I've gotten elected. And I, again, am just so grateful to the citizens of Keene for voting for me and being a freshman rep. It's been a wild ride because when I ran for office, I anticipated that Democrats would be in the majority in the legislature.
I think we all thought we were going to get a lot better outcome than we did in November.
Yep, it's been incredibly sad to see what the Republicans have been doing now that they have a Republican trifecta. We have a Republican governor, we have a Republican majority on the executive council, and both the state Senate and the state House have Republican majorities. And Well, I wasn't and so that as a freshman rep, is it disheartening to see that?
Working in that environment, yeah, not what we expected, not what you expected. You expected probably a little, I don't know, a little more even footing there. And all their priorities, I mean, the things that they're putting down and bringing forward, it just makes no sense. It seems like opportunism. They're like, we might as well do this basically rotten stuff while we can. And the things that New Hampshire families need really are getting pushed aside right now. That's what it looks like.
It's incredibly, you're exactly right, Dave. They are extremely reactionary. They are out of touch with the values of most Granite Staters. And on both social issues and economic issues, they are pushing forward public policy that does not benefit the citizens of New Hampshire. How that being said, I have one of the things that's been very important to me since getting elected is to form relationships with like-minded colleagues and to continue, despite the circumstances, to be a strong voice for opposing bad policy and planting seeds for the future for what we want. And by holding Republicans accountable now and making the public aware of what they are doing and what we would rather see in the future, I'm hoping that working together, we can change the situation in the next election cycle, and in the and right now be working on building political power, holding off the bad stuff to the best of our ability, and planting seeds for a better future.
Yeah, that is so important. The planting seeds part, of course, like we need our youth. It's their world and their future as much as it is ours. Perhaps even more so. They're going to live a longer time in whatever we create for them now. That's really important stuff. And, that's really why I do what I do, is to help kind of spread that message. And to your other point of just kind of keeping the lights on and making people aware of what's going on, because even I think I'm pretty tuned in, but I'm not terribly, I keep my finger on the pulse here and there, but what happens at the State House is this great mystery, and if you're not really looking for it, you don't see it. That doesn't come on the evening news. You don't see the legislation, you don't see the bills, unless you've got some line on it, or know somebody, or see somebody clanging at the bars or carrying their signs downtown. And that's a really big part of why I do what I do, is because the people are speaking. The networks are controlled by, the corporations. There's a very few corporations who control basically all the news that we see. And for whatever little part I'm able to do, I want to shine the light on what's going on in the world. And I want to show what the people are interested in and talking about. And I usually, you have to take this time to talk to the folks at home to say, when I'm out in the street doing my thing, that's my own time. I'm a member at Cheshire TV. I have my own show. I do my own thing. My politics lean to Democrat and progressive. I should have said that the other way around. Progressive with a little slice of Democrats in there. So that's my own thing. This channel, Cheshire TV, is all about anybody saying what they want and anybody bringing their stuff forward. But I bump into you because we're aligned in that way.
Yes, we are.
And quite honestly, these are the people who are in the streets. What the people are saying, what the people are demanding action for, are the things that you're supporting and the things that we believe are true. It's not like every other Saturday I have a chance to go down and shoot the Republicans in the square, saying, we want more kids in cages and, to keep your wages low. Like, those people don't come out and rally in the streets. It's not a great message to wear when you have to, be on TV and show your face and say that sort of thing. So that really does seem to be what the people are doing.
And I'm so grateful that you are covering these important progressive social movement events on your own. It's incredibly important that people are well informed about the different things going on in their community and the public policy that's going to impact their lives. I identify as a progressive Democrat. I'm both involved in progressive social movements and I'm a Democratic politician, but I'm definitely, I have been an activist for a long time,
Good.
and I would love we want more activists involved in electoral politics. We shouldn't see these things as separate. They go together. We need both. We need protests. We need people in the streets, and
Yep.
we need to elect people who are going to put forth legislation that benefits the people and not, as you said, corporations or a minority of religious fundamentalists who are trying to control what people do in their personal lives with their bodies or who they marry. Like, we need good politicians who are carrying out the will of the people and that have social movement backing and have good relationships so they can work together to put forth legislation that's going to aid progressive social change. So there's no need to choose. We need to be involved both in the social movements and in electoral politics. And it's been a really important part of my work to try and help bridge that gap. And so we are working together.
And that's a great point about the politicians and the votes and the things going through the State House don't necessarily represent what the people want. It's a different way to say, I think, what we just talked about a little bit. But the corporations and the special interests are very much represented in those bodies. And it's, there's the mainstream Democrat issue, as I see it. They're a little too aligned with the status quo and the money in politics and all that sort of stuff. And at the same time, we need the Democrats, and I think they need us as progressives, and we really are more together and on the same team than we are different. But it's an interesting process that we have, the two-party system and all the money in it. Some of my friends are very involved in getting the money out of politics. I happen to think that's one of our most critical issues, is people doing this stuff for the corporations who continue. I mean, the fundraising becomes most of what they do once they get into office is start raising money to keep their seat, and that's just wrong. But I do have a funny story to relate along those lines. I went to Concord to be a representative, a Democratic rep, when the big primary thing was going on, and all the primary candidates went to the State House.
Yep.
Not to the State House, but where was that in Concord? I might even be thinking Manchester. It was the big one, the big rally, and they start coming through the stands with signs for the candidates. So we were down front on the floor, and the cameras were all there. Everybody was there. 17 candidates or something. And as they were coming through, the first people through were carrying Biden signs. And I thought to myself, they were take one and pass one down, and I said, oh, no, thank you, I'll pass on the Joe Biden there. I was very much a Bernie guy. I was very much a lefty, sitting in the Dem section, but it took me a while before I realized that my purpose there was actually to take all the signs and cheer like mad when that was going on. But Joe was not my first choice. He was very much aligned with centrist Democratic policy. We didn't have much hope for him as a progressive at that point. He was just dead last on my list of guys. And I couldn't be happier right now with Joe and what he's managed to get done. I mean, you look at how hamstrung you can be getting put into that position. You look at what they did to Barack Obama and just said, we're going to say no to everything he does. So, I did not have great expectations or optimism, and I'm really happy with what Joe is doing. I'm happy that he's getting enough Democratic support to make that a thing. And right now we live and work within the two-party system, and I think we have a lot of good friends in the Democratic Party as progressives, and vice versa. There's a lot of stuff going back and forth.
I think I can speak to that a little bit, Dave. Yeah. So I also I am on the left side of the Democratic Party. I'm in the Warren Bernie Sanders camp, but I always support, just like you and progressive organizations, I always support at the end of the day whoever our nominee is, and there's no doubt that any moderate Democrat is way better, leaps and bounds better than our Republican opposition. And so I'm happy that you highlighted that. And so I was, during that Democratic primary, personally very torn between Senator Warren and Senator Sanders. I ended up supporting, I'm a feminist. I really appreciate a lot of Senator Warren's work around feminist issues and highlighting things like pregnancy discrimination and going to bat for child care. These are universal child care. These are really important issues. And but Senator Sanders is a feminist too. He is a white old man who absolutely goes to bat for everybody. And so I applaud him for being a role model to show just because you don't personally experience something doesn't mean that you can't have empathy and be an advocate. I ended up voting for Senator Sanders. In the Democratic primary, I am a big believer in free, universal health care. I believe, as a feminist, you cannot have things like good reproductive health care if you don't have access to health care in general. And so because of Bernie's long-term commitment to that, I did end up voting for him in the Democratic.
I would have put you on Warren here,
I did.
and I would have totally understood. I spent a lot of time with Warren's people when the primary was going on, and so that was funny too, because some of the Bernie-crats were just not Warren people, and some of the Warren people were like, oh, they did not think much of Bernie. I thought that was odd. But they were so closely aligned.
They were.
And they were wonderful people. Everybody I met was passionate on that side. Everyone was intelligent and articulate and was they really believed in their cause. They really did a great job. So I wouldn't, to your point, I would absolutely vote for the nominee. The protest votes, please, people, please, you folks at home. There might be a time for that, but not when the alternative is for the Democrats to crash and to, Trump was pretty difficult for 4 years. Imagine.
Trump is fascistic, and Biden, as you have pointed out, it's like a night and day difference between him and President Trump. And so right after the primary was over and my candidate didn't win, I got right on board the Biden train and I dropped off literature. I spoke on a panel with the president of Planned Parenthood to bring attention to how the Biden plan would help uplift reproductive health care in the United States. And so it's, and I went to visibilities on the lawn in Keene. And so I refuse to choose between being a progressive and being a Democrat. I am both, and and
voting against wrong is as important as voting for the right candidate. Voting against what you know is going to be really bad for people.
And we need to show up if we want to influence, and we have, and even when we lose elections, we even when the progressive candidate, for example, Bernie Sanders or Senator Warren, when they don't win, just by them running in that primary, they push the Democratic Party to the left. So do activists and social movements. When we're vocal, it makes a difference. And so we want to applaud, like Biden just, when he recently talked about his commitment to paid family leave. That's an issue that I have cared about for years. And so I want to thank him for supporting that. And I also want to thank all the social movement activists who for years have been pushing to bring that to the forefront. Your voices matter. Your activism matters.
Being seen, being heard, every like, every share, as much as you can.
Absolutely. So there is. So I feel optimistic about the future. I believe that the Democratic Party, we've seen people like AOC and Cory Bush and Senator Sanders, push this party to the left, and we are making progress, and we need to continue to have social movement activists and Democratic politicians work together so we can bring about change that people can actually feel. Like now, it's wonderful to talk about it, but we need to keep pushing and pushing until until we feel until people are feeling a quality difference in their lives. So we don't want to give up. So it's great that we won on a national level, that we have in New Hampshire a Democratic delegation in Washington, and we also need to win in New Hampshire. We need to not let because it's not enough to have the national delegation. We need to be winning local elections, and so because what I'm witnessing at the State House, we just had put forth a budget that gives tax breaks, to corporations and people that do not need it.
Don't need the money. While turning our pockets inside out and saying we don't have enough for schools and we can't pay a wage, and I guess that doesn't really affect the tax base as much. But like the shame on us. We're always crying broke, and we're giving money to these corporations who, socialism socialism for what do they say with the we're cleaning up all the messes. The
Socialism for the rich, I think, is what you were going to say, and rugged individualism for the
capitalism where the profit is, and socialism when it comes to cleaning up all the mess that they leave behind. The socialism is the policing, and the social services people, and the people who clean up toxic waste sites. We can spread that amongst the people. Let the people pick up the costs there. But focusing those profits towards the haves, it makes very little sense.
We need to both be, in my opinion, taxing corporations appropriately and using that money for social services. And we need to, as a society, and I've believed this for a long time as a college student, I was out protesting the war in Iraq. We need to be moving from spending so much money on militarization and criminalization to investing in social services and prevention. We're going to spend money. There's no doubt about it. Governments spend money. Our government has always spent money. But what do we want to put that towards? Do we want to put it towards healthcare? Do we want to put it towards education?
Once again, priorities. I get no value out of a new missile silo. I really, really believe I don't.
Those need to be the priorities, and we just need to keep talking about it and bringing attention to it. And I know that if we don't let up, we have already made progress. We defeated the Trump administration. We can continue to build on that.
Exactly. No time to rest. No time to rest.
And move even further in a direction that's going to serve everybody, not just a few.
Not just a few. Great points.
Yeah.
Tell you what, can we take a quick break and we'll come back and talk about some more things? I know there's a lot to get to, and we don't want to run out of time here. So you folks out there, stick around. We'll be back in just a few minutes with Amanda Elizabeth Toll. And we're back, friends. I'm here in the studio with Amanda Elizabeth Toll, our newly elected state rep, and we're going to continue the conversation we were just having, or some of it. There were a few points we wanted to get to, right?
Yes.
Before we close, and I guess one of the things was, can we just leap right into Keene Democrats and what's going on locally?
Sure, yes. So I'm very excited that we have a newly elected Keene Democrats. There are not...
Yourself included.
Myself included. I'm the vice chair of that, and I there's 19 of us, and we're a big group who have a lot of different passions and have long histories of activism. You can learn more about us at the Keene Democrats website, and we are committed to having a really big tent party and being inclusive towards everyone and hearing the voices of everyone, and also forming great relationships with progressive social movement organizations across the state, so that we, as we've talked about throughout this conversation, we can make more effective change when we work together, when Democrats and organizations and activists are working together towards common goals. And so this has been really exciting for me to see taking Democratic politics in Keene to a new level of engagement and activism. And we're running some really amazing events. First of all, we had a historical caucus. We had more people show up to the Keene Democrats election than the history.
More than their Zoom room could hold. We had a little technical trouble there getting off the ground.
So that was pretty exciting, and there were so many young folks in attendance, which really warmed my heart. And now we just had, like, on Monday night, an amazing immigrant justice event with live music, and we had...
That was great. I was there.
You were there, yes. That's right, you were.
And I remember Sebastian Puentes talking about him going to a Democratic event and being the youngest person in the room. And yeah, exactly. We really need to get the youth engaged. And they're getting engaged. They are standing up and taking a cause and taking a stand, and that's huge.
It's so huge, and so we're so grateful to be working with them. And we had Representative Maria Perez, and we had who's also the chair of the Latino the caucus, and we had Sebastian Fuentes, who's the vice chair, and has done a lot of activism with many organizations, but especially Rights and Democracy. And we had Sue Hay from Project Home, and it was
great work. I just can't say enough nice things about what she's doing, and
absolutely, like
selflessness of just to, like an advocate, like you are for your groups. I mean, just sticking up for the people who need the help, and she's wonderful. That's a terrific
absolutely project. The work that Project Home is doing in our community to support refugees, asylum seekers, it's incredible, and to highlight their struggles, and how it's on all of us to make sure that people feel like they belong and that they're safe. And so I cannot say enough good things about the work that Project Home is doing here in our community. So that was wonderful, because we're organizing, we're active, and at the same time, we know in order to sustain us, we need to organize with joy and relationships and feel that we are in community and have one another's backs. And so we are not just looking to get people out to vote every 4 years. We're looking to build community year-round.
The whole process.
Yes, regardless of whether or not there's an election coming right up. And building community is a ethical, upstanding cause in and of itself. Yes. But it will also help us win elections.
It's an imperative. We have to stop thinking about the politicians and the rulers and the people who run the machines, because we're all in it together, and it's super important.
So and we have some listening circles coming up, so please go to the Keene Dems website. We want to hear from you about how we can help, what you think this community needs. And so we're having listening circles for each of the 5 wards in Keene. So please go to the website and sign up And we're just so excited to welcome you into this local first movement that we're building.
And that's going really well. They're doing a lot of work to get these listening circles going. The website for those folks enjoying this at home, it's keendemocrats.org, and that's where you can find information about the listening circles and links to sign up for those. And I would recommend that people do that. It's about ways to get involved in your community, which is kind of where we were headed next. Is what words do you have for folks out there who are looking to do something but they don't know what to do, or how much to do, or whether that little part is going to be important, or how do people get involved? What do you say?
So I'll definitely end by talking about ways people can be involved, and then and then I want to encourage folks to stay in touch with me. Like if you want to, please reach out. Like I have a Facebook page where I frequently write like political updates about what's going on in the State House, and I'm on Twitter, and my campaign website is still up. So I'm so humbled and grateful to be your state rep, and I'm here to serve. So please feel free to reach out and use me as a resource. And ways that you can get involved are plentiful. And any activism is better than no activism. Yep. So feel good about what you can do. So some things that you can do are, in terms of let's talk both inside the State House, and we'll talk about progressive social movement stuff too, because they're both important. For work inside the State House, every bill has a hearing on it. So you can sign up through the General Court website to sign in favor, in support of legislation that you think is good. And you also can sign in opposition to legislation that is bad. And so I encourage you to sign in to hearings on pieces of legislation. If you want to, you can also sign up to testify at these hearings, which I go to as many hearings as I possibly can. So, for example, if there is a bad anti-choice bill, I have signed in before in opposition, and then I've gone and I've actually shared my abortion story with the committee to try to move them to understand how this piece of legislation impacts people's lives. And so if you have a story that relates to one of these pieces of legislation, you can go and you can share it, or you can give statistics and facts in support of whatever your position is, or you can blend the two. And so there's so many ways to participate, but that's a really good one, is to sign in for or against. And then if you'd like, on top of that, give spoken or written testimony.
Wouldn't that be powerful?
Yes. So that's a great way to get involved with the New Hampshire legislature. And then we have so many great organizations across this state doing good work. And so I encourage you to find an organization that speaks to the issues that you care about and get involved with them. And so I follow and am involved with Rights and Democracy, Planned Parenthood, the New Hampshire Reproductive Freedom Fund, the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, the New Hampshire Youth Movement. There's so many, and so organizations that speak to me, and so it's wonderful to follow them on things like Facebook and Twitter, because they give frequently things like legislative updates, or they endorse candidates that speak to your passions and interests. So find some organizations that speak to you and follow them, along with following the Democratic Party and your local representatives. So you want to stay engaged in Dem politics, stay engaged in social movement politics, and whenever there's an opportunity, let's bring those together. Exactly. So that's my for today, and that's what I'll say about getting involved. And please come and get involved with the Keene Democrats. We are bridging that gap, and we want you to be a part of it wherever you're at on your political journey. You're welcome. Thank you so much,
that's
Dave.
so important. Yes, it is bringing us together, and the inclusivity and trying not to pick a side and pick on the other side as much. I think all of these groups, I see them joining each other's causes. I see people supporting each other when they come to speak, and it's important. And we might not agree on everything. We certainly don't agree on everything all the time. But a big tent, like you said, bringing people on board and keeping an open mind when we're talking about the other side too. The red team, there's some good people there. The Republican. I started out a Republican. Like, I understand some conservative values.
I would have never guessed that, but yeah.
Way long time ago, but I did. They were saying small government, keep the government off my back, fiscal responsibility, and I was like, hey, I'm in. That sounds good to me. And then over the years, I observed pretty much the opposite of that happening.
Yeah.
But there are people who started there and who just can't extricate themselves to come stand on the green team or on the blue team.
Definitely. And we're not going to bring people over to our cause by treating them poorly. So try, if you can, to have deep conversations with people. I know we were going to wrap up, but I just have to see, Dave and I were actually at an event on the lawn for a Democratic Visibility event, and there was a woman for Trump there, and Dave and another Democrat that were there, nicely, gave me the courage to go and speak with her, and she herself was an anti-abortion activist, and I ended up sharing her with my story, and I had a good conversation with her, and she actually ended up voting for me. So
nice.
That's what she told my friend who was there with us that day, Tim. It's worth building relationships. Don't go into it thinking about the end result. I would have talked to her even if she didn't end up voting for me, but understand that we need to win hearts and minds. And if that doesn't mean that we don't hold politicians accountable. Yes, we need to hold politicians accountable. If a politician is doing something like not supporting raising the wage, which is something that's going to impact so many Granite Staters, we need to push them in that direction. We can both support all Democratic candidates and also speak up when something is not in line with our values. You can do both. You can do it in a principled way, and you can have conversations with people who don't feel the same way as you in a meaningful way. And over the long term, that's going to bring people in when we're warm, when we're loving, when we're compassionate, when we exhibit empathy. So part of being a progressive is not just where you stand on the issues. And I'm going to stand firm on the issues. And I'm going to stand firm in endorsing the more progressive candidates. But that doesn't mean when it comes to interpersonal relations, we can't strive to have good relations with everybody. We should.
And to be respectful of one another.
And to be
respectful. And include them in the conversation.
And include them in the conversation as much as we can, Dave. You nailed it. And I think that's that's probably a good note to wrap up on, is that we're in this together. Let's work together to we're facing so many challenges. We have a climate crisis. We have systematic racism and sexism in this country. We have people that don't have access to their most basic needs being met, like health care, or just making enough money that they can pay their bills. And so we need to stay focused, and we need to work together to bring about the change that's going to benefit the majority of folks. So thank you so much for having me, Dave.
Oh, thanks for coming on, and we'll have to do it again real soon.
Yes, definitely. I love coming. I love this. This is not the first time I've been interviewed you. I always enjoy being chatting with you. So whether it's in an interview or at an event, so I'll come back soon.
Well, I was going to say, let's make it a regular thing anytime.
Yes. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks so much, and we'll catch you next time on November and Beyond.